works in St. Charles.
The next meeting is tomorrow.
My day job, I work for St. Charles. That's correct. But it is absolutely, independent of that. I was appointed by the commissioners to serve on the charter board, as I was telling Russ. One of the reasons I was interested in serving on this, and I think maybe one of the reasons that I was appointed, was I also served on the committee 10 years ago now. One that recommended the referendum that had the county go from commissioner for government to the code home rule type of government that we have now. And I was on that group that recommended that, and I think it was ultimately approved by referendum in Charles County. And on this board, I'm kind of the voice of history to what that group was, why they recommended it, and why. So I want to talk a little bit about this. I'll start out by telling you, which I think I've said in public session. I'll say it again. I'm not for charter government. I'm not against charter government. And I would encourage everybody else to take that same attitude. Until we write the charter and see what's in it, and that process is still ongoing, I would just encourage everybody to keep an open mind about it. The analogy I would use is buying a car. In the abstract, buying a car might be something that's a good idea. Until you know exactly what kind of car you're buying, what the terms and conditions are under for the purchase of that car, well, that might make the idea of buying a car a little bit different proposition. So keep an open mind. This is a process that we're undergoing. Right now, we've kind of finished the first rough draft. We have some fundamental issues still to resolve, and part of that is going to involve a public hearing process. We take the draft of the charter out for people to read, to come back to us about their questions and comments and concerns. We'll take those comments back again under advisement and write the charter and the process, and I'll kind of work through that process of how the charter will be presented, how it'll be voted on, and what the process is going to be here from moving forward. So, as I said, if you don't mind, let's start the process at the beginning. The commissioners voted to establish our charter board by resolution.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you said.
Okay. Not sure what he said, but I'm getting questions already.
I think I sat on Siri.
We voted unanimously to establish the charter board. I think there's subsequently Commissioner Rucci said he's not in favor of going to charter, but the process has started, and citizens like myself, were appointed. There are 9 members of the board plus 2 alternates. Our first meeting was in February, and since then we've been meeting, like I say, two times a month to review charter and begin this process of collecting information and drafting the charter that will eventually go to voters. There are 3 forms of government, county government in Maryland: code home rule, which Charles County was until 2002. There are commissioner counties, which are non-home rule counties, which we were until 2002. Code home rule counties, which is a form of government that we have right now, and there are 11 charter counties. The most recently being Frederick County, which voted to adopt a charter in 2012, and will become a charter county here in 2014. But one time, every county was a commissioner county, but then the General Assembly allowed some counties to go to what was code home rule, where much more local affairs were controlled by the county commissioners. That's the form of government we have today. Charter home rule allows basically the citizens to set up the type of government, and set up kind of a legislative and executive branch of government. If they decide to write that, there are a couple different options they can go through in the county. And that process of adopting the charter and amending the charter, once adopted, is entirely controlled by the residents in that they have the power to not just approve the initial charter, but any amendments to the charter going forward then have to be approved by the residents of that jurisdiction. Like I say, in 2002, Charles County voters voted to change to the form of county government from commissioner home rule. Primarily, I think because of a give the county, which was growing at the time, continues to grow at the time, a little bit more control over local affairs than what the county has at that time. Back when we were simply a commissioner form of government, there are a number of purely local affairs that had to go and be ratified and approved by the General Assembly. This gave a little bit more, greater block of power to Charles County under Maryland Code. The Code Home Rule then was what the county graduated to in 2002. That's where Code Home Rule retains the same governing structure used in a commissioner county. The commissioners remain the county's governing body. How it does business under commissioner form, the Code Home Rule is nearly identical. The noticeable difference is the operational between the new and old form and the amount of local legislative control. And if you follow the commissioners, and I know a lot of you do, you know that there are days where they have what are called legislative days. And under Code Home Rule, there are a limit to the number of legally mandated legislative days that they can have to adopt legislation as a Code Home Rule county. This is one of those additional grants of power they have in the Code Home Rule that they didn't have under commissioner form of government. The Code Home Rule for the government, and how the government is organized, the number of commissioners and such, not necessarily the number of commissioners, but the government controls how the state government really and state law mandates how the government is organized and formed. But the charter, and really what we've been tasked to do by the commissioners through a charter, is to write a local constitution for Charles County government, to establish the fundamental rules and basic mechanisms by which county government will run, and the basic components of that. Should there be a county executive? Should there be a county council? Should there be a county manager who runs the day-to-day functions of county government at the direction of a county council? These are all types of forms of government that we can consider under a charter and write into the charter as a way of organizing Charles County government. Over the next year, you may hear the charter establishes the basic structure of the government, and that's what it does. And that's what I think that they mean by that. Do the citizens want to set up an executive branch of government, a county executive? Do they want a strong council, a strong legislative form of government that maybe has a county manager that oversees the normal operations of the county at the direction of that council? We'd like to, what's important is that once the voters have spoken, the charter is written, considered by the voters, and if it's adopted, it can only be amended by those voters again. The county council, county executive, if they agree, can propose amendments, but those amendments to the charter have to be voted on by the county. And if the government is found to violate the charter, the court can void acts or take in contradiction of what that charter has established. Much like if the Congress or the President have exceeded their authority under the United States Constitution. So the charter government, what we're looking at in establishing a charter is our discussions that have been going on in the last year and our fact-finding is we're looking at establishing or writing a charter that will include a county executive and a county council. Although we're still looking at the exact size of that county council, whether it should be we seem to be coming down to somewhere between 5 and 7 members on that council, and that's a decision that's going to have to be made and written into the final charter that's presented for voters for referendum. The charter will establish how the governing body will be elected. By example, if an intense interest here in the county, whether that's by at-large voting, which means candidates can reside in the district and are elected by all county voters, which is how all 5 county commissioners are elected now. By district voting, where candidates may reside in a specific district and are only elected by voters of that district. And by residency district voting, where candidates must reside in a specific district but are elected at large by all county voters. And 4 of the commissioners are elected that way now. The charter also can set the qualifications for office holders and for people to run for office. How old they must be, how long they must live in the county, how long they must live in their district. And most importantly, I know financial issues and whether this was going to grow the size and cost of county government. The charter can address how the budget process works in Charles County, which in talking with commissioners past and present, one of the big concerns that they seem to have was is a somewhat cumbersome and difficult, what they felt was a difficult to manage budget process that the county goes through now, in that that there isn't what I understood these commissioners to be saying. Like I said, we talked with commissioners past and present from MAC to to Kansas and more. Is that they wanted to see more accountability for a commissioner or county executive to be able to propose a budget and kind of guide and shepherd that process and make it a little less cumbersome than it is now. And I want to stress, while we're looking at a county executive, county council form of government, and it seems to be and again, I want to stress that all the remarks I'm making tonight are for myself as a charter member. I'm not speaking for the charter board, although I'm a member of it. These are my attempts to explain what's going on, and any opinions I express are mine and mine alone, not necessarily those of the charter. An elected county executive is not a requirement of a charter. And that does seem to be the process that we're moving, but it's not a requirement. It's merely an option that can be selected by our committee in writing a charter. So what if we want to change a charter? Like I say, voters are the only ones who can change it. It can't be amended by the General Assembly. Under the Maryland Constitution, the voters of a charter county can petition a proposed change to the charter at any time. The county government can also propose a change, but in either case, only the voters can approve a change at a regular special election. Voters is just as interestingly at any time if they adopt the charter, have second thoughts, they can vote to terminate the charter or in return being a coded overrule county as well. I know, and I read the article by Ken. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his last name because I'll do him injustice of butchery. But I saw Ken's letter in the paper today that the charter government will necessarily cost more. And I think as I read the letter, he was advocating that a cost-benefit analysis of a charter be performed. Speaking for myself, I don't necessarily disagree that we should evaluate whether to go to a charter in the context of whether it's going to cost more and grow the size of government. Something that I philosophically would not want to support. But as I just kind of started out at the beginning, I think it's important to wait and see what the charter says. And I know in terms of writing, making a determination of whether a charter government will cost more depends on what the charter eventually says, and that process is still ongoing. So until then, it's a little bit difficult to really do an effective cost-benefit analysis of a charter until it's written. And again, I would support that, or take a look and see, is this going to cost us more? Again, speaking for myself, I'm working for our committee to write a charter that won't do that won't grow the size and cost of government. I'm going to work, and I hope the rest of our committee will drafting an eye toward a charter that holds costs at current levels. So the process is, under the Maryland Constitution, Charter Board is formed, like we've been meeting for the last year, no ours asked for the last year. We draft a proposed charter and then it's placed before the voters for their approval. One of the things that stumbled a little bit with the beginning is I think the original charter, as I understand it, again speaking for myself, called for our charter board to write a charter that's going to be presented to voters this month. The problem with that is, as I understand it, under the Constitution, under the Maryland Constitution, and how this process is set up, once a charter is formally presented, we've completed our work and reported back to the commissioners, that charter has to be voted on within 90 days. So if we had followed that original resolution, again, my interpretation, my understanding by the link, the charter would have either died because there would have been a referendum, the Charles County would have had to have a special election to vote on that charter. With the new resolution, the subsequent resolution that Charles County produced, we're going to be presenting this in probably sometime in. It'll have to be within that 90-day period to be valid under the Constitution, and so it'll be at most 90 days before the November general election. But the charter will be on the ballot in the November general election. What happens if it's approved, if it's adopted, is that we have the right transition provisions into the document as to when elections would be held for county executive, when elections would be held for county council, and that's part of the process that we're working through as well. So our process to do this has been to research, gather information, and interview a variety of leaders of their views on charter government, and to begin to draft and refine that. We've been using the Frederick County government charter as the one that was most recently adopted. We've been kind of using that template of making changes that we kind of reflect what we as a charter board want to see in that. Going forward, our recommendation, our work and our timeline is to submit the final charter to the Board of Commissioners by July, and have it put on the ballot for August. So the result will be that it'll be voted on in November 2014. And I want to stress, and I'll be happy to take your questions, that we want to reflect residents' views. I know there's been some discussion about why we haven't had public hearings yet on the charter. Again, our sense was rather than starting out that way, we wanted to write a document that people could see what was in it and react to it, and have a central focus point for what the charter is going to say, and let the broader debate begin at that point. Under the resolution, we are required to write a charter. Under the resolution, under the Constitution, it will have to go to vote. The process that I felt strongly about, again speaking for myself, but I think the entire board was, let's write the charter, write the best charter we can, and write the best draft we can, bring that out to public hearing, and we will have, I think the resolution calls for at least 2 public hearings. My commitment will have at least that many, and make sure that, and I would even be open to having a couple more that are, so that we can go to each reach of the county. It's a big county from Cobb Island to here to Useville, so that people can easily access these hearings and tell us what they think.
We talked about this.
We wouldn't have come tonight if we known.
Well, there's going to be a lot more. This is just the beginning. We absolutely want to hear from people on questions about views on creating a county executive, on expanding the. Right now, we have essentially 5 commissioners. If we go to a county council, do you agree with that decision? How many people should be on that council, and how should they be elected? Should they be elected simply by district? Should they be elected at large? Should there be maybe some type of combination of the two that would be a compromise between simply electing by district and having all candidates from county-wide? So that process is ongoing, and we're certainly going to to invite public comment on that and incorporate that public comment into the final document. This is an organic process. It is ongoing, and to encourage people to follow the draft, follow our meetings. The 2 Thursdays a month. I know they're taped and publicized subsequently on county government television. And if you have any questions, I'm always available by email. Barbara knows. Sometimes I'm more available than a lot of the commissioners, so to answer questions, and I'd be happy to.
I'm glad you came here tonight because I do have a lot of questions. I don't have my book with me. I'd left the mountains of North Carolina at 9 o'clock this morning. Just pulled in the driveway.
I hope not to hear me, because I would have recommended you.
I don't have all my paperwork with me in front of me, but I do remember a few things when I was sitting in the room, and if you remember,
Sure.
I showed up at that meeting, and I was the only one throughout the whole county because it was established in the paper. It was open to everybody to come. Now, they couldn't speak at the meeting, but they could take notes and listen. Now, I'm trying to understand the process here, because Leonard Collins and the board, the appointed board, was voting on what you all were going to do. Like salary. You all discussed salary on the executive. $150,000 to $98,000. And that's when the hair came up on my back. And when we took a break, some of the people came to me and asked me, said, well, what do you think of the process now? And I said, well, I got news for you. If you guys are going to try to sell that kind of salary, which the taxpayers will end up having to pay that, there's no way in this guy's green apple world that that's going to happen. This county won't stand for a county executive to be making $150,000 a year in Charles County. Especially when they make $50,000, a little over 50 now, and the commissioners make 43, 45. So what are they going to get? The county executives, the county council members are going to get somewhere around 78,000. That's a considerable pay raise for those council members that are going to get on that board. Not only that, you all talk about the perks, vehicles. Now, I don't know the final draft. Did you all, has a final draft been made?
No.
Okay, so this is you're kind of putting the cart before the horses here. Because it seems like you would come with a final draft, then kind of sell it to us then, and then see where we stand when you go to take it to the commissioners.
Yeah,
well, I hope what I just described was exactly that process.
yeah,
Is that we're working on the draft.
But is the draft finished?
No,
okay.
We haven't. There's still some. It's very close, but I wouldn't say that it's finished yet. But let me speak just to the issue of salaries.
Okay.
Okay. You're right. We're kicking around. And what the salary should be if we elect, and as I said, as I'm going through. One stress again. These are now my opinions and mine. We're kicking around what that cost would be. Right now in the draft, we leave what the salary should be for the county executive is left to right. And the reason for that is there hasn't been a consensus on the board that we should set that. I think in the draft right now, it anticipates that the council members, whether there be 5 or 7, will be paid about at an annual rate of $48,000 a year. The one thing I recommended is Charles County consistently has a salary commission. Like the charter board is a group of citizens who meets and reviews what the salaries are of county elected officials and make recommendations for whether they should be, their salary should be raised, stay the same, whatever they should be. In terms of the county executive, I would like to wait, and I think that report either was just issued since we had that conversation that night you were there, Johnny, or is about to issue their reports on what those citizens in that commission who have studied the issue report back with what they feel the salary should be. I would like to wait in this document to see what that report says before we make that decision on what those should be.
Well, me as a candidate right now for the 2014 election, there's no way that I'm in this for the salary. I'm not in it. I'm not. Now, one of your board members, charter board member, is now in the race to run for county commissioner or county executive or whatever. So it tells me maybe these people are getting in the race because of the salary that you all are proposing.
Well, like I said, we propose I think $48,000, which is what I think that the outside of the president is what I think about what the salary is now. Maybe slightly higher, but not significantly. But $48,000 is well below I think what the median salary.
I think for a part-time position, $48,000 is a
that's
fine
why I
salary.
want to wait and see back what I want to see what the salary commission reports back.
It's going to be a part-time position?
The county council, I would anticipate, yes, it's going to be a part-time position.
So $78,000 for a part-time
But the
position.
county executive is going to be part-time too?
County executive will be full-time.
Oh, full-time. Which one's getting the 48,000?
The council members.
Oh, just the council?
The council members.
Okay, that's good.
We also have provisions in here, that those salaries would be reviewed, again, probably about every 4 years. There are provisions to, whether they can be raised. There are provisions that would restrict their salaries from being lowered during a person's term in office, so it doesn't become a vindictive measure between a county executive and county council. That they're going to stick it to the council's going to stick it to the county executive by slashing their salary down to nothing in the middle of their term and things like that. That just seems to us to be, or at least to me, again, just kind of a good government measure to try to limit the amount of turmoil that legislators and the county executive can cause in a given term of office. But that's something that still has to be worked out. I hear your concerns. I think on the other side, for somebody who's going to be running a county government, the multiple agencies that are part of a county government, what's an appropriate salary for somebody who heads an organization of that size is a decision we're still kind of wrestling with, and voters will wrestle with. I understand.
It seems like the timeline doesn't seem like the voters are going to have much time being part of this process. That's the problem I'm seeing.
Well, they're going to have the process to give us feedback here, later this winter and this spring on what's in the charter. We'll take that feedback, include that to the best extent that the board feels that it can, and include that in the final charter that presents to the commissioners, and then it's entirely in the voters' hand, because they're going to have from the 90 days before the election to review that final charter and ultimately give it a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah, that's clarifying that timeline again, Craig. Earlier you said July is your goal to present it to the commissioners.
Right.
So between now and July, you have the public input and stuff. It goes to the commissioners. What authority, once they get it, what's their options? Can they throw it away, or they can't send it back for modification?
My understanding of it, my my understanding of it is, what we present to the commissioners is what will be on the ballot in November.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to any of the other governments, or just, did you get their documents and read them, or how did?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah?
We have the charter, and we have a big thick binder that has each of the charters for each county government, for each government that has a charter. And we reviewed a lot of them. Like I said, I think we chose Frederick as the template we could follow because that was the most recent one to be adopted. So it's a practical politics matter. It's one that was most recently approved by voters, but other county. That seemed to be the best template to follow rather than ones that had been approved in the 50s and 60s.
Did you actually go there and talk to them and how?
We brought many in. We've had Doug Duncan from Montgomery County was in, for example, the former county executive of Montgomery County, and he was somewhat of a state expert on local government and how it's organized. We've had council members from other counties around the state. I would say at least 2 or 3. We've spoken or invited to each of the commissioners to speak with us, of the sitting commissioners. We've spoken with the former commissioners. We've spoken with Gene Lauer, who's former county administrator and served in a similar capacity in Prince George's County government. And we have, the county has hired a gentleman named Victor Turtula, who was formerly University of Maryland, but is a leading scholar on forms of government, including charter governments in the state. So, through the spring and through the fall, we went pretty extensively, and through that, I think the one kind of interview session or information gathering session that we're going to, we still have yet to do, is to talk with David Einholz, who's the budget director for Charles County. And again, speaking for myself, I'm very interested in making sure that we impose reasonable, sensible limits, one on the county's ability to contract into and issue debt, and I'm very interested in seeing if there are prudent measures that we can put into to limit tax increases in the county without hamstringing the county's ability to react to an emergency situation. For example, if there were, and this isn't a perfect example, but when the tornado hit the town of La Plata, a similar situation like that would happen that was really under the county's jurisdiction. That tornado, as terrible as it was as much under the town's jurisdiction as the county's. The point being, any county government, to my understanding, needs to be able to respond to an emergency situation like that, including the ability to raise funds. But otherwise, again, speaking for myself, I want to make sure that's as restrictive as possible.
I got a question on taxes. Most jurisdictions have county council people. Will Charles County Council have a staff also?
Yes, there will be county staffers. One of the issues that we've been concerned about and have delved into is we don't want them necessarily to completely hamstring the staff of the county executive, and I think again that kind of gets back to that role of creating a lot of mischief and turmoil in county government. We want to make sure we write the charter so that it operates smoothly and they get proper amount of information, for example, from county executive and their staff, but that there are established procedures to do so, so that those employees have reasonable ways to proceed with their work without, constant interference and bickering back and forth. In terms of county council staff, we've also talked of, how can we make sure that there are limitations on county staff, so that one, it doesn't, create more opportunities for the mischief I've just described. Two, so it doesn't, exponentially or unduly increase the cost and size of the legislative portion of the government.
But even that alone would look like that they would have to come up with money for their staff.
Right, there would be some costs in there.
So
right?
that would be automatically to pay for that, wouldn't have to go with some type of tax increase.
Well, that's one question that we have to take a look at, and we want to understand with Mr. Eyeballs. It might be that the commissioners have a certain amount of staff, for example, now, and how would that existing staff, be divvied up if we went, to a county executive and county council floor? That staff that's in the commissioner's wing, the county administrator would obviously, continue to serve, or somebody like that would serve as a chief of staff, for example, for county executive. What staff, that's in that existing commissioner structure would kind of come over to the county council? That's something we got to, I think we're still researching and trying to understand and see how we can write the charter to reflect that.
A couple more here. One to follow up on this. The proposal, from what I understand, is between 7 and 9 council members. Right now, there's 5 county commissioners.
No, I think it's between 5 and 7.
Okay.
Again, that's to be determined, but I think right now it seems to be between 5 and 7.
But from the federal government all the way down to the local governments, for a number of years now, we've been trying to push to get government smaller. It seems like this process now is to make government bigger. And that's hard to wrap yourself around on that one. Number 2 is, right now you have the chief law enforcement officer, is Rex Coffey, at the Charles County Sheriff's Department. There's a proposal in there to have a county police department.
No.
Leave it as it is.
As I understand it, right now, there's state law, Charles County, maybe one or 2 others, and I've looked into this in the last couple of days, and I still need to get clarification of it, and make sure my understanding of it is correct. Is that there's a state law that prevents Charles County from being able to establish a police department without authority of the General Assembly. So, for example, under most code home rule counties, as I understand it right now, they have that authority, whether they're code home rule or whether they would go to charter, to establish a police department. Because of this law, Charles County does not.
That's a good thing then. I'm okay with that.
Well, that's fair, yeah.
It's good.
Usually it depends on whose ox is getting endured, but as I understand it, if the charter's adopted, that process to establish a county police department would still have to be approved by the General Assembly. Now I have to confirm that, but that's certainly a question.
But then wouldn't the county citizens vote on it?
Yeah.
Because then you say any changes to the charter would have to be approved by the voters.
But that would be a change to the charter. That's an existing state law. Right now, the commissioners, if they wanted to establish a police department, would have to work through the delegation and get that law and get that authority passed by the General Assembly. Under charter, that process would be the same. If the county executive wanted to establish a county police department, he would have to go to the General Assembly and get that authority. The charter would not supersede state law and wouldn't give, just like the commissioners do have that authority, the county executive will have that authority. Again, my understanding of it, that's something that, we have to research as a committee.
So all I can say is it's going to be a fun campaigning season. It'll be really entertaining.
Do you have any, excuse me, muffins? The speculation, I guess, is that it would be like Howard County, where with the election, you elected a president and the commissioners, and then when they decided it was going to be chartered, then the president became the executive and he appointed who would take his place.
Let me make sure I understand your question. The speculation is in this election, whomever is elected president of the Charles County Commissioners would automatically become the county executive upon the adoption and implementation of a charter form of government.
Right.
Again, that kind of gets back to the provisions we have to write into the transition. I don't know that I necessarily support that. One of the things we found in the election is that local elections have to take place on the non-presidential election in the state of Maryland. There's only one county that doesn't do that, and they got a special dispensation from the General Assembly to hold their local elections in presidential years. However, in your transition provision, you can have that initial election for county executive, for county council. For example, if this charter were adopted in 2014, you can have that provisional or transitional election in 2016, and then each of those would be elected in 2018. We're working out what those provisional how those provisions would work out. I suppose that's one option. I think, speaking for myself, I'd probably prefer to see that county executive elected, by the voters in 2016.
Yeah, if that happened, I think it would lay lots of fears to rest, but that's just my
It
opinion.
didn't scare people enough, evidently. The room would be filled up.
Yeah, I think.
In the charter that we have now, in the draft, the election of the first executive, the election of the first executive shall be held on the date of the congressional election held in November 2016. And they would hold office for 2 years. And the first council would be elected at that same time in November 16. And then hold office until they were elected to 4-year terms in 2018.
So the ones who are running for election now, if they got in, but then got to run for election again in 2 years.
Yes.
That's the way
I thought
to
it was county council, county executive within the next 2 years.
No, the county commissioners would be elected this year. If the charter would be adopted, they'd serve 4-year terms as they have to start. If the charter is adopted, there are provisions to elect the county executive in 2016 and then have council elections. And to my mind, the reason to do that is because you now have 4 commissioners or 4 district commissioners, and you have either 5 or 7 districts that are going to be in the council. So there's going to have to be a process by which those districts are drawn, and then candidates run from them. And they may or may not be, because it's more and they're elected by district like they are now. There's just going to have to be some thought given into how those districts are drawn and such, and wouldn't necessarily comport with the 4 commissioner districts that are in existence. So that's why they wouldn't automatically become.
That's the problem I see, is that the timeline is so short right now, because now you're talking about redistricting again. Because we just went through that. I mean, we held meetings, 4 or 5 meetings So some of the Democratic Central Committees went around the county and held meetings at elementary schools and middle schools to
There's a commissioner's redistricting process that takes place
Takes
after
place
the
every so
census,
many years.
every 10 years, right?
Yep. Now we're gonna have to redo it again. So we're going to draw up new ones if we have more council members.
You would have to draw up districts, that's right.
It's a lot of work. I hope the citizens know what they're voting on. That, yeah, you're right.
You could have 4 commissioners voted from their districts and 2 at large. We could live anywhere.
That's true as well. I'm part of that process with
Danny's on Howard.
Yes.
That's where, we're all anxious to get our hands on that first round. This is wonderful having you come out and give us.
I haven't checked, I can answer about this. We have our next meeting is actually tomorrow night. I thought the draft was available on the page of the county's website that's dedicated to this charter commission.
I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean it's not.
Maybe it's not.
It just means the county webpage needs
It's,
it.
because, we do go through certain section, and then, we get it to a point and that draft is, was written and sent back to us. I thought that was being posted on the county's webpage, but maybe my understanding is that's mistaken. I've never gone and looked.
Yeah, your meetings were videotaped, but it was at a long delay for the line. But now,
I got a fan behind me, I'm sorry.
there was a long delay from your videotapes being taped and then being online. And just last week, they started putting them on real time. So, we haven't seen anything else. Maybe that's a big fix.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just a staffing issue. I know I've asked that they be picked up as quickly as possible. When I've inquired about that, we kind of meet what the commissioners call their blue room,
Right.
which is their old meeting room, and is apparently just they don't have the facilities. By that I mean the cameras or the staff or something to be able to take meetings in there and broadcast them live. The ones that are live are the ones that are held in the commissioner's auditorium, the current meeting room.
I know in early December when I came to your meeting, I was sitting there, man, I wanted so much to say something. Because there were some things that y'all were going over that it was just hard for me to keep my tongue right there. But
We're covering a lot of ground.
you had a hard task, I have to admit that. And there were quite a few people that were arguing and disagreeing. So I don't know what the final outcome is.
Well, I would say that we're all lockstep. I would definitely not say that. These are big questions. As I started out, this is roughly akin to drafting a constitution for the county. I will say this. I've been impressed with my fellow members. I think they're bringing to it. They're considering these issues seriously. They're considering them thoroughly, and I think that all of them want to do a good job in writing this charter and reflect the concerns as best we can of the broad swath of Charles County citizens. As I started out from the beginning. I'm not prepared to say that I'm in favor of the charter because, as I said, I don't know what it's going to look like at the end, and there's still some issues to resolve.
Well, somebody likes it because they already got in the race.
Well, but again, it doesn't preclude that she has an opinion or not on this charter. Again, like everybody else, I'm going to keep an open mind until we write it. I encourage everybody else to.
Well, Lori here has been typing on our Facebook event page what's been happening, and she does have some questions that people.
Well, I'm pretty sure I don't want to see those remarks about it.
No, everything's quiet, but there are a number of questions. Somebody was ready and posted a bunch of them all together, so, but neatly and concisely. So I'm going to go through, a couple of them have already been answered
Okay.
for what we've done, so there's not like a ton here. The first question they have, this is for anybody that's on Facebook, this is from Andy Wynette. So, they want to know what is the position or the statement from the Charter Board Chairman and the consultant that the public hearings are only a suggestion. And there's a
I
video
remember,
attached with that, and that was from September 12th, public hearing.
I don't remember that statement. I don't know if it was made. I've missed one or two of the hearings over the past year. But, you know, I know for myself, and I think, again, without speaking for the entire committee, but I feel confident saying that, you know, we're committed to having public hearings and hearing back from citizens, as I've already, I think, or heard by expressed here, hearing back from them what their thoughts are on the draft that we'll present here in you know, late winter, early spring of this year, and getting that feedback and trying to incorporate that feedback into the charter that we ultimately put on the ballot in November.
Okay, I was saying, you do not recall a statement, you did miss a couple of meetings. You are committed to having public feedback before the final charter is drafted and
Right, and
presented.
I think the rest of the committee is as well.
Okay.
It's so nice that she's doing this work, right? Oh, shit.
Well, she's looking, Craig, I got a quick, sorry.
Yeah.
Your internal process, you've stated several times tonight, well, you're not, at this point, you're not sure if you're even in favor of the charter, so on and so forth. Do you guys have like a voting, let's say some, I don't know, issue comes up. Do you guys like vote on it, whether it gets to be part of the charter? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You don't have a
You know, for
dictator there.
example, you know, we haven't had that final vote, but, you know, there will be a vote of the 9 members as to whether it's a, you know, 5 or 7 council members.
Okay.
You know, every provision that's in here in the county, or everything that's going to be in here in the charter, you should say that everything's going to have a vote. Everything will have had a hearing. On many of the provisions, there's broad agreement, and there's not a formal, you know, up or down vote. But the more, you know, lack of a better word, controversial or more debatable, or the more debated provisions, you know, like that number of council members and such will be. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for turning on the heat. You know, each of those will be voted on by, and we have had several of those votes already along the way.
Another question is, would like to know how the board is trending about voting for the council members being voted by district versus at large. Are you seeing that going in a particular direction, or?
I'd say that's a provision that's, you know, we still have to reach consensus on as a board.
So y'all split right now?
Yes.
Because that was the question. When the night I was there, y'all were kicking that
Right.
down.
But, there is some sentiment for, for electing people by district. And solely by district, that you have to live in the district that you represent, and that you're elected solely by those individuals.
And that's where I'd be in favor of the charter. Just that alone right there.
I would argue that I would be against that.
We have to start running by district. It's pathetic the way it is right now.
Yeah, but the majority of the population lives in District 3, like it or not, they do. And fine, vote by district, but District 3, or the current District 3, should probably have more members
But
than
according to
say
the Democratic
Namdor.
Central Committee, Phil, is that when they broke up the districts, when they redistricted, they set it up to where it's equal amount of citizens in each district. You go and look at the map. I disagree with it, but that's what they're saying.
Well, when you set up districts, you have to make sure that you're following federal voting rights act, policy, and they include, that districts can't be gerrymandered, that they have to have clear and contiguous lines. The principle of one man, one vote, applies in that you can't have, in a county of 150,000 like ours, if you have 4 districts, you can't have 100,000 in one district and 50,000 in the remaining 3 districts. They had to be fairly close in population, so that each citizen in that chance, in that respect, has an equal opportunity to be elected. Obviously, it might be harder to get elected from a 100,000 member district, resident district, as opposed to a 15,000 district. My argument, Johnny, and I'm saying, that, this is, 100% one way, 100% the other. But where I come down on it is as I look at other county governments who have elections solely by district and don't have, in particular, council members who are there and represent the entire county, I see an increased level of parochialism, of what the founding fathers referred to as faction on this committee. So they're solely interested in what goes on in their district, and they don't have any other interest in what goes on in the rest of that district. I think that's probably a fundamental concern that people would have about how the U.S. House of Representatives conducts its affairs right now, that it's solely motivated by faction. I would have serious reservations about having solely the county council elected by district, because I would think there's potentiality to create that level of faction and back scratching among a future county where the representative from Indian Head is solely concerned, and if it's a business just going on in Indian Head, they're interested. Otherwise, they're not willing to support it if it's going in Bryan Town. I think there's a strong need for the council members to consider all the best interests of Charles County, and my concern is that simply electing people by district is going to...
It'd be nice if it was that way, but some of these county commissioners that are on board now, they don't see your point. Because I know where there are lies, and some of them done lie in District 2, I can tell you that.
I don't want to address what and discuss the current politics of the commissioners, and that's not what we're trying to do here, at least not what I'm trying to do, and I can faithfully say, from my estimation, not what the rest of my fellow charter board committee members are. But I would say, whether we have a code home rule county, whether we have a charter county for that matter, whether we have a commissioner county, the best antidote, the best antiseptic to what we think are the failings of our elected leaders is to get involved in campaigns and run for office and hold them accountable. And if we, our citizens, aren't able to do that, it really doesn't matter whether we have a code home rule or a charter county. The type of government is only as good as the involvement and and how we hold our elected officials accountable, and that's true of Charles County, that's true of Annapolis, that's true of DC. And I don't want anybody to leave this discussion of a charter form of government with the idea that this is going to be a one-size-cures-all problem for the problems of county government. The only real cure-all is effective citizen participation in government, not just in those elections, but in the committees that so often go lacking for citizen involvement, that people have opportunity to participate in, from one board of commissioners to the next. Citizens have to remain active and engaged, because that's the best way to get the government they deserve.
Follow up to that. Thank you for those words. That's, I think, why we're here.
Absolutely.
Has there been discussion with this? Is it an either or could there be a hybrid, such as DC has? Just they have different councils, but then they have some at-large spots as well. It could be either or. It
could be hybrid. It's ultimately it will come down to a vote of the charter board.
Okay.
Well, I'm an idealist, and this county is so vast. And Nancy Boy, needs certain things that have not been brought to attention. Hughesville has some interest, and this time you have a representative that is actually representing them. But with all the diversity, I think that should be by district, but they also, those who are elected, know it has to be for the county good. And maybe that's just being too naive, idealistic, but I think that's the only way that a person truly feels like they're represented.
And
I think
as I said, you know, speaking for myself, I understand that. But as I look around, you know, there are plenty of examples, I think, of county governments that elect their councils by district, where you could probably go and hear that same concern, that even though they're elected by a council person, by the voters solely the district that council person represents, they don't feel that that person listens to them for whatever reason. So that's why I say, you know, this adopting a charter form of government, maintaining a code form of government with the type of election of commissioners we have, isn't a cure-all for you know, for the alienation or disaffection that people like that, or for people who feel like that.
Did you have some more?
One more,
Okay.
and I'm not sure where this is going, so. The current resolution, 2013-12 states that there, quote, will be a county executive. There is nothing suggesting the board has the option of, I believe it means not creating a county executive. Is there an option, or is the way the resolution is written that the instruction, you have to do a county executive, there is no other choice?
It's my understanding that we can write the charter to include a county executive or a county manager. That it's really up to this charter board to determine the form of government, the types of districts, whether there's a county executive, county council, whether there's a county council with a council leader who's elected and runs the county. But you know, in a format that's similar to the way the 5 commissioners are now. That's entirely within the purview of the charter board. Now that said, you know, in our deliberations, you know, over the past year, the format, you know, that we're working toward right now includes a county executive. But that is, you know, that's a draft, and as far as I understand, we have the authority to go back and change that if we agree that's the best way to proceed. Or if we go out to hearings from county residents and we hear from them that that's the best way that they want us to proceed.
You're right next to each other.
Russ is all going to throw this back at me in about a week and a half.
What was that resolution number? You just.
2013-12.
2013-12.
Now, are you the only one from the board going out here talking to the citizens, or the other board members doing it?
This was open to every board member. This is the first time I've gone out and spoke to anybody about it.
Was this recommended by the board that you do this, or you did this on your own?
I volunteered.
I asked.
There has been at least one other platform where 2 members of the commission did come out and speak publicly.
Right.
Mr. Collins and Ernie Wallace came and spoke to the Homeowners Association of Southern
Oh,
Maryland.
that's good.
So
Right.
there has been a precedent. This is you're not, even though we applaud you.
There is, you know, if you want a speaker, as I told Barbara, we have an email address at the county, charterboard@charlescountymd.gov, and send that to that. Barbara has my email address if anybody else is interested in having me or another charter board member come out and speak. If I'm available, I'm happy to do it. As I said, I absolutely believe in the public input, and I hope what I've explained and talked about tonight helps you better understand our process and where we see this going forward.
Yeah, Craig and I do have,
I have one more comment.
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. The last question, I think, and Daniel Moynihan says, big thank you, all caps, big thank you, all caps, to the board for taking on this task.
well, that's
think we've
something you
answered
did a
It
good
is
job.
it's a largely enjoyable task, and to me, it's been very interesting, and debating the provisions of what's being chartered, it's been a very interesting process, and what we can do and why, and invites, useful discussion about what the nature of our government should be.
You said Frederick County just got theirs this year? well, 2013.
Adopted in 2012, I believe it's just going into effect this year, yes.
Oh, okay, so,
Howard
we don't know
County
how well they like it yet.
Didn't Howard County do it a few years ago? In the,
Howard, 1968.
Oh, wow, it's 4 to 7 years.
Cecil adopted one in 2012 as well. Became a charter county in 2012. I believe we talked with them them about their process as well.
Cecil's on the eastern
I thought that they were kind of northeast.
Yeah.
I thought they were a little bit like north of Baltimore along 95, heading up toward Delaware. Is that right?
Actual election.
Who's, isn't there?
I thought that's
someone-
Carroll up there.
They're
I
gonna-
thought Cecil was Eastern Shore. I'm
I
sorry.
don't know.
So
They're saying
I may be
Cecil's
wrong.
right next to New Jersey.
Yeah, I wouldn't be-
Oh,
It's right in-
Well, what's
I'm from Pennsylvania. I mean, I've lived here
Average
25
grade.
years. I'm still figuring out my marital geography.
Average grade is along the last town.
I mean, people
I thought there
cannot
was
accept
one
they've
on
already
Eastern
got
Shore
a
that
county
just got
executive, this and
recently.
that. We're not even,
Those
we
are
don't
the two
even have
most
a charter.
recent. The rest go back to the 60s and 70s for the last counties before that to adopt the charter.
It's got me pumped up again
oh,
about
good.
learning,
Yeah,
becoming informed.
our purpose here, and I hope to have many more, maybe down in Houston, but is to educate Charles County citizens about what happens in county government and what you can do to get involved. Because unless you're educated, you're just talking to your neighbor and grousing about something and nothing's going to get done. So I do appreciate the new people who have come out in the last year.
Our chance to you, it's when we have another one.
My neighbors called me and asked me, what can I do about our roads? in
Well,
our
call me.
development? I said, where am I?
I'm taking care of things like that for people too, so.
Where you live in Houston?
Yeah,